Welcome to the latest edition of Actuary Voices, the podcast from the American Academy of Actuaries. I'm your host, David Nolan, the Senior Director of Marketing and Communications at the Academy. In this edition, during Cybersecurity Month, I'll be chatting with Isabelle McCullough, a member of the Academy's Committee on Cyber Risk. Isabelle, welcome to Actuary Voices.
Thanks for having me, David. Pleasure to be here.
We are delighted for you to join us. We usually start with people giving us a bit of background about themselves, where they're from and what led them to the actuarial path.
Sure. I grew up in Gainesville, Florida, the home of the University of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess most importantly, my dad is a research mathematician, so math was the part of my life from a very early age. My interests in school, and especially in high school, looking to go into college, were more pure math, economics, and I double majored in math and economics in college. So I took a bit of a winding route to get to the actuarial career path. I didn't know what an actuary was when I graduated from college. I had high hopes to do a PhD program coming out of college, and I made it about 6 weeks and decided that was not for me. So when I went to think about what was next, I luckily had some family friends, one of whom was an actuary, who spoke to me quite a bit about the profession, encouraged me to start taking exams. And I took a couple of exams and then got my first entry level position, and sort of lucked into it, I would say.
That's kind of concerning from my perspective that you went all the way through college doing math and no one ever mentions the actuarial profession to you.
Indeed, yes. US used to have an actuarial major program. They did not by the time I was there. I don't know if they do again today or not.
Right.
But yeah, it was not on my radar.
Sure. And it's certainly one of the barriers to entry that many people mention, that there is so little knowledge about the profession writ large, let alone about how great it is. I was on a call earlier today, and it was with a market researcher, and she was just waxing lyrical about how great actuaries were to work with. And she was being totally genuine. Tell us a little bit about what came next in your career.
Sure. So my first role was an actuarial analyst role at a PNC consulting firm. And I spent about 3 years there before moving on to my current position. So I was working on sort of the standard homeowners, auto, work comp, that sort of thing. About maybe a year into that role, the firm was looking for a junior analyst to help do research on cyber. We hadn't had any projects come our way as a firm that involved cyber, but 2017 or so coming off some rather high profile breaches, something that they were interested in exploring. They were looking for someone to do lunch and learns related to cyber as well. And so I took that on. And quickly became very fascinated with cyber as a line of business. And, it was so different thinking about how you would apply actuarial methods to something like cyber that was rather new and evolving quickly compared to the work that I was doing day to day. So that was how I got interested in cyber. I really decided it was time that I wanted to work full-time in cyber in 2019, and was very lucky that there was this position open at Axis, where I currently work today, and that they took a chance on me with, having only 3 years experience at that time.
Well, I can't imagine many people had an awful lot more experience because it was certainly a new and emerging area. We're talking during Cybersecurity Month, and cyber is an area that attracts both problem solvers and conversely people who want to cause problems. What was it in particular that fascinated you about this area?
Yeah, so that's something that I was thinking a lot about coming into today. And I think it's a combination of things. One, it was new and just had a lot of press around it at the time. So I can't discount that contributing to my interest. I really like a challenge. I like to think creatively. I really enjoy problem solving, and not that we don't do that in all of the lines of business we work on, but I think there's definitely an added twist when you have a line of business where there's so little historical data to base your assumptions on.
Mm-hmm.
And I should add, I went into a cyber pricing role, right? So,
Right.
um, forward looking without having really a whole lot of data on which to base your analysis. So that really intrigued me. And I think we do have more data today, obviously, but I think the same issues persist. How relevant is that data from 5 years ago or 10 years ago now to what we expect may happen in the next 1, 2, 3 years? So I think the creativity was a large part of it.
Right. I'm not going to ask you to speak about any specific cyber breaches, but there have been some very large ones, notably around healthcare here in the US, as well as military ones, which we probably won't get into. Have there been any trends or really innovative things that you think that folks can pay attention to?
Yeah, I think on the more recent, larger, perhaps systemic events that we've seen, I think for many years there was discussion around pricing for a cyber systemic event, and certainly any insurer that's writing cyber is thinking about this. They're modeling their systemic exposure. But I think there had been agreement until rather recently that perhaps we really hadn't seen a cyber systemic event or CAT event, if you will. Mm-hmm. And now you will see people referring to them as cyber kittens in some cases, where these smaller systemic events, maybe, if you will. I think that's something that we're all keeping a close eye on, because I think we're perhaps waiting for there to be a good test of a lot of this modeling as well, if that makes sense.
Sure. Though many of us would wish you didn't have to test the models too much, because it obviously would be the result of a massive breach.
True.
You're on the Cyber Risk Task Force at the Academy as one of our volunteers, and I want to thank you very much for being a volunteer. It means an awful lot to us at the Academy, and obviously to the profession as a whole. And you bring clearly, a wealth of experience to that. Have you been working on any interesting projects recently?
Yes. So I really, really enjoy being a member of the Committee on Cyber Risk. Most recently, I have been involved in working on some new papers that we will be looking to hopefully publish in the near term. And we have a handful coming out. One is around personal line cyber. The other is around vendor models. So when I was just speaking about the systemic risk modeling, that paper is going to be looking at some of the common vendor models that are used in the industry. There's an even more recent one that's around D&O and related SEC cybersecurity disclosures. And then there's the paper that I've been most involved in writing, which is related to global cyber. So it's really trying to look at the cyber market globally. What's the size? How has it performed? What are some trends we're seeing? And it also delves into region by region some nuances. Looking at established markets, so the US, the UK, really North America, I should say, the UK, Europe, and then also looking at some more emerging markets, so Asia, South America being two of the top growing markets today.
And have you had to go on any fact-finding trips to investigate those things locally?
Yes.
Traveling the world in the name of cyber prevention.
Yeah.
That's obviously covering a lot of ground, and you've been focusing on that last paper. And I don't want to delve too deeply into it, because obviously that would steal its thunder before it gets released. But the Committee on Cyber Risk has got a toolkit as well, which covers an awful lot of ground. These are separate papers from that, are they?
Correct, yes. Right. So the toolkit has a lot of different papers, and they're intended to go together, but you can read them separately. Right. So some of the main topics in there are going to be around cyber data, accumulation risk, ransomware. And so these are all papers that we would be looking to add to that toolkit.
Right.
And I should add, there's, because cyber is evolving so quickly, there's a subcommittee that's really entirely dedicated to keeping the toolkit up to date. So it can be hard when we put something out and a year later there's a major update to be made.
Sure. Yeah. But I guess that does make it interesting and exciting that it is such an evolving market and an evolving field. It would be kind of sad if you looked at a paper you'd written 10 years ago and nothing had changed.
Very true.
Would you care to expand on your international experience, given that you're helping draft a paper on that topic?
Yes. And so I should have clarified, but my roles, both on the insurance and reinsurance side, have been international. So we have we write a lot of business in the U.S., but our cyber pricing team is operating out of London and the U.S. So I also had experience on the insurance side with the primary insurance that Access writes out of London. And then on the reinsurance side, it's a similar story. So our main areas are going to be writing out of the U.S., Canada, and London there as well, or Europe, I should say.
Right.
So that was part of what drew me, I think, to the Access role as well, is that was a unique opportunity. I think it makes sense for cyber where it's not, you can't really diversify geographically as well as you can in many other lines. And so it makes a lot of sense to me that that's how the team was structured. But I know there are other companies who still have, say a US cyber pricing team and an international cyber pricing team that are run separately.
Right. And does that mean you need to be familiar with the laws and regulations in other countries, or can you rely on local actuaries to take on that burden?
I still need to be aware of the laws and regulations. I do take a lot of guidance from the actuaries working out of the UK, but I think it's, in terms of professionalism, on me to understand those as well, especially if I'm involved in the decision making.
Sure. Thank you for listening to Actuary Voices, the podcast from the American Academy of Actuaries. Please rate and subscribe to this podcast on your preferred podcast listening platform. We are on the web at actuary.org, where you will find a wealth of information about our work and how you can become an Academy volunteer. And now, back to my conversation with Isabelle McCullough, a member of the Academy's Committee on Cyber Risk. I think I also saw that you were involved in some hill visits earlier this year. Is that right?
I was, yes. It was a very good experience. So we were with the Academy in DC, so speaking to public policy stakeholders about cyber was one of the focus areas that we were speaking about, and so it was very enlightening for me to personally to hear these public policy stakeholders speak about their concerns about cyber risk. I think it can be very easy, especially when I'm working in cyber as my full-time job, it can be very easy to be so in the weeds that I forget to take a step back, right, and think about some of the public policy implications. But yes, it was a great experience.
And can you share any of those particular stories or what their concerns were?
Yeah, so one thing that was discussed was, around a potential federal backstop for cyber. So something akin to TRIA.
Right.
And I think we're in very, very early stages of that discussion. I know there have been more meetings this summer, I think led by the FIO, around what that might look like. And they are speaking to the industry, so the insurers, the reinsurers, about what their thoughts are as well. So early stages, but I think it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Sure. And you mentioned TRIA, that's the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act, right? And
Yes.
There's another one for flood insurance, I believe, right?
Correct.
Funny, it's all P&C stuff, isn't it? So your experience with the Hill visits was positive because there's something we do on an annual basis. You'd be interested in doing it again, I hope?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, it
Great.
would be a great honor.
Good. So it sounds like you find your role interesting, both your professional role and your voluntary one here at the Academy. Is there anything you'd like to share about what you find particularly fulfilling about either any recent work product or more generally about the profession?
Sure. I think I can speak to both. I think in my day job, I joined Axis in 2019, and I was working on the cyber pricing side for the insurance companies, so primary insurance. Um, and through that work, I was exposed to a lot of different projects that included, new product development. It included really streamlining our rating processes. It included developing a rate adequacy metric, putting more rigorous rate change and renewal rate change metrics in place. So really kind of trying to put more rigor around the pricing that was being done for the cyber insurance side of things. And I really got a firsthand look at the market. So in 2019, within the first year I was there, I guess, mid 2020, we saw the market start to really turn and rates harden quite a bit. So I feel like I really had a front row seat to that. Now, in the last year, I've transitioned into a cyber reinsurance pricing role. So I feel like I've had this somewhat unique journey with cyber where I've now gotten to take this step back, apply all of the market knowledge that I gained on the insurance side, all of the nuances, all the detail that you get to see on the primary insurance side. And it's been very interesting to be able to apply that now to reinsurance pricing. So that's on the work front. On the committee side, I joined the committee almost 2 years ago now, I guess. And I was taking a break from exams. I should add that break still continues today. I was taking a break from exams, and I was feeling like there was a gap, really feeling like I needed something else, work related, but not at work, to keep me interested. And so, luckily they were looking for volunteers. I responded to the call for volunteers survey and joined. And it's been very rewarding. I think it's a two-way street. Of course, I hope that my work on the committee benefits, the academy members, public policy stakeholders. But it's also been really interesting for me and rewarding for me to be able to have these opportunities like the Hill visits or public speaking. Also to, be involved in some of this research that's being done and network with other professionals outside of my company in cyber and hear their perspective.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people say about volunteering. It puts you into a pool of people who you don't know and who may become great colleagues in the future, and either you will learn from them or you can nurture them and give them skills that they didn't have as a result of your experience. And that two or even three-way street makes it all the more rewarding, in addition to the actual physical work product that you produce.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you feel are some of the challenges or opportunities that the profession is currently facing?
I have a couple things. I think one is around climate change, and I know that's an area that the Academy has been actively involved in, thought leader in. That one, and I don't pretend to be an expert in this area, but it's something that is top of mind for me. I have family that was affected by the Tubbs fire in California.
Mm-hmm.
I live very close to the Marshall fire in Colorado recently, a couple of years ago. And a lot of people in my community have been sort of priced out in terms of insurance. So, I see the local concern, which I think really helps to humanize some of these issues. And I know there was a paper I think the Academy recently released about climate events that also was connecting those to inequities and risk mitigation. That would be something I suggest, anyone who's interested should definitely read that, even if your job day to day doesn't involve
Mm-hmm.
property necessarily.
We're speaking in the aftermath of a couple of severe hurricanes, and one of the shocking stories that has emerged is that many people simply can't afford insurance and their houses are now gone. And you said there were a couple. Is there another?
Yes, and I guess I alluded to it. Perhaps I think all of the bias work that's been done over the past few years and that continues to evolve, I think is very important for the profession as well as the public, obviously. But the paper that recently came out that was sort of connecting some of these disproportionate impacts on different populations from climate change almost feels like an intersection of those two topics. It is interesting. And so at the Hill visit this year, I was lucky enough to hear some much more knowledgeable people speak about both topics, the bias and some climate change issues as well.
Isabelle, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much again for the work you're doing with the Committee on Cyber Risk. And I look forward to reading your paper when it comes out and perhaps having you back on in a little while to discuss your next project.
Thank you. It would be a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Actuary Voices, the podcast from the American Academy of Actuaries. Today, I was talking to Isabelle McCullough, a member of the Academy's Committee on Cyber Risk. Isabelle mentioned some recent papers from the Academy on cyber risk, climate change, and data bias. They are all available under the Public Policy tab on our website, actuary.org. And please, rate and subscribe to this podcast on your preferred podcast listening platform.